Hello and welcome to another Bobeats video, and today we're checking out the Korg OpSix. It's a new FM synthesizer from Korg, and I dare say that it's the most user-friendly, the most accessible FM synthesizer that I've ever tried. So in today's video, we're of course going to listen to what it sounds like. I'm going to play you a lot of sound demos. We're also going to make a patch from scratch. And I hope to show you how accessible this synthesizer really is. It's going to be really beginner friendly. I'm going to take it really slow. So get a cup of coffee, sit down, relax, and enjoy the show. So what is it that makes this one of the most user-friendly FM synths I've ever used? Well, a couple of things. First up, a lot of hands-on control. We can also change waveforms as well as operator modes here very easily. And it's also very quick to change algorithms. There's also the fact that the menu system, as is not always the case with FM synths, is very accessible, very easy to understand. So say you want to change the amp EG, just hit level EG here, select whatever operator you want to change. Suddenly gone from pad to something plucky. Want to set up a modulation, just go into the virtual patch bay, empty spot, select whatever you want as a source, say an LFO, select a destination, let's do ratio. And it's that quick and simple. Now, if this is going too fast for you, don't worry. I just wanted to show you that there's a lot of hands-on control with this FM synthesizer, and when we do the patch from scratch, I'll go much slower, so you'll have an easier time following along. There's also a lot of cool presets, but more importantly, there's these templates that you can use, for example, this one, which is basically a one-note chord, and let me just show you here. Suddenly, it's a sine wave-based chord instead. So it's quite hands-on for being an FM synth. What's also really nice is that there's 32 voices and a really nice unison mode. So here we have a non-unison patch. Totally fine. Let's add some unison, some spread, some detuning. Very nice. It's easy to make it sound good, even though it's FM, and FM can be a little bit more difficult to tweak. It also has 3 master effects, which is really needed when you're working with FM because it can be kind of harsh. So let's enable them. Just press Effect, Effects 1, turn on, Effects 2, turn on. And there's a lot of different effects that we can pick between. So we have everything from grain shifters to limiters to compressors to delays to chorus, flangers, phasers, you name it. There's a lot here to like. If you have the Minilogue XD, you'll recognize some of the shimmer reverbs, some of the algorithm used for that. And if you have the wave state, you'll recognize some of the stuff. The same for the filter. There's different filter types as well that you can use, and it's very similar to on the wave state. And there's, of course, a sequencer. You can step record, you can live record into it. There's also an arpeggiator. They're very similar to something like on the Minilogue XD. 6 lanes of automation is possible, but I won't go into that much detail of that in today's video, just so you know. But you can do cool stuff with it, like this, for example. Now, before I do a patch from scratch, and it's gonna be slow, beginner friendly, here's some more sound demos. Next up, I'm going to take you through the process of making a sound on OpSix, and just to entice you a little bit, here is kind of the finished sound that we're going for. So we're going to start off by just jumping straight into the user algorithm, because I think it's a great way to learn about the Korg OpSix and learn about FM synthesis in general. So we'll start off here, selecting an initialized preset. Then we have the algorithm page, algo 1. And here you can see you can scroll through a great number of algorithms that are predetermined. And then we come to the user one. Shift, and here's MISC, user algo, so you select it. Looks like this. Now it might seem super complicated, but I promise you it's really not. So with these faders here, I'm changing the output level. But if I increase the level here, there's still no sound. And this is because we haven't set this operator, operator number 1, to actually output audio. So basically you see these little X's here, they indicate which of the operators are outputting audio. So I changed the page, operator number 1 on. So now we can hear operator number 1. And the audible operators we can think of as just oscillators. And with this knob here, we also changed the ratio, but we don't have to think about that just now. So let's change the oscillator settings by going here to mode. So this is basically your oscillator page. So here you can see we have different things we can change. We can change the mode. So this is one of the unique aspects of the Korg OpSix, that the different operators have different modes that you can select between. We're gonna touch on that later. And we can also select the waveform. So here we have sine wave, different forms of sine waves, a lower bit one, triangle, saw, square, and different additive ones. So we can select the saw waveform here. And next up, we want to create a modulation. So to do this, we're going to create a modulator here on operator number 2 here. So we're going to Shift, MISC, User Algo, yes. And here you can see, we're looking for operator number 2 affecting operator number 1. Where is that? Well, it's over here, 2 to 1. Nothing happens, and that's because we have to increase the output. And of course, if I turn down the carrier, the audible oscillator, you can't hear anything because this one here is modulating this one. And it's also good to note here that operators that are carriers are red, and here we have this kind of purple here for the modulators. Now the waveforms I talked about are of course important for the modulators as well, because depending on what kind of waveform a modulator has, it impacts the carrier differently. So we go to mode here, we select between, as you can see here, the different operators, operator number 2, and now we can change to another waveform here. So let's go for a square here. This is kind of cool. And now is a good time to talk about the different operator modes, because this is where the OpSix is different from many other FM synths. So we have the standard frequency modulation, which is pitch modulation. So we're using this here operator, the modulator, to modulate the pitch of the first operator. Then we have ring modulation, and you use the depth knob to set the mix here. So we also have a filter mode, which takes basically the modulator here and the carrier and just pushes it through a filter. And all of these parameters can of course be modulated using, say, an LFO or an envelope. So that's pretty cool. There's also different types here, high pass, we have band pass. And then we have the filter FM, which is basically a super high-speed wah-wah effect. So here we're using the modulator here to control the cutoff of the filter. And then we have the wave folder, basically a sort of a distortion unit, which takes both the modulator and the carrier, puts them together through the wave folder here. Now at this point you might be thinking this is all well and good, but it still doesn't sound interesting, and it's because we've only scraped the surface. We're going to add modulations to the modulators, we're going to modulate the filter, we're going to add effects, and altogether it's going to be pretty epic, I promise you. But for this example, we're sticking with standard FM for the first modulator. Going to change the ratio, which is basically the pitch relationship between the modulator here and the carrier. And the thing with FM is try and be gentle. Don't go overboard. 51% is 52% here is pretty good. So next up, we're going to shape our oscillator and the modulator. So we go in here under operators, level EG. So we've selected number 1 here. Just going to make a drawn out sound just because it's easier to show. And now we're going to go in here to number 2 and do a drawn out sound as well. Did you notice that? It's like this one is coming in slowly. There you can hear it, it's coming in later. So this is very interesting. I'm gonna make it a little snappier. So here it comes in faster because next up I want to add another modulator. So we're gonna go in here to MISC here, user algo. And now I want to use operator number 3 to modulate operator number 2. You might be thinking, what's up with that? Well, basically, I want to modulate the modulator that is modulating the first oscillator. See, now we're getting into the headache territory, but this is the cool stuff with FM, the kind of modular ecosystem that it really is. This is like a sort of a patch bay between different modulation sources and destinations, which is, I think it's really cool. So we're going to go to the second row here, basically number 2, and I'm going to look for 3 to 2. And we're going to go to level here and go to number 3. So the idea is that you're hearing this sound, this comes in and modulates it fairly quickly, and this comes in later modulating the modulator. So I've selected a different waveform here, square, and I've also changed the ratio here to 4 just to make it more noticeable. Now what we could do, of course, now is go back to operator number 2 and we could change the mode from frequency modulation, because basically this modulator here will be frequency modulating this modulator. We could change that to something else. So instead of FM, I went for filter FM. Set the cutoff, as you can see here, so a bit of resonance. We can modulate this more later, but for now it gives it an interesting little sound. So where are we now? Well, we have the 2 operators here acting as modulators. So this modulator modulates this modulator, and the outcome of that modulates the first operator, the carrier, the oscillator, the thing that makes the sound. Next up, I want to see if we can use another tool in the FM tool set, toolbox, whatever it's called. And that is the pitch. So basically here we have, if we double press here, we have different controls. So this is a good time to touch on this. So as you can see here, there are these knobs here, and they correspond, as you can see, to these different graphical representations here on the screen. So to the top 3 rotary encoders. And then we have something called control, as well as destination. So you can always use these knobs here to change whatever is on the actual screen. But it's also a little bit different because the control here is basically a second control. So we could control the intensity of something. I think that's it. The depth, the intensity of something using, say, the mod wheel here, for example. But for now, we're going to stick with LFOs and envelope generators. So there's 3 LFOs and 3 envelope generators. They are located under mod here. So we have envelope 1 here, envelope 2, which is already assigned to the filter, e.g. 3, LFO 1, 2, and 3. So under pitch, we're going to change the pitch using an LFO of the 3rd operator. So listen closely. The sort of wobbling comes in after a little while, and that is because we have, of course, changed the curve. So using this EG here, the amp EG, we've changed the curve of this operator. So we're going to have it at 25, and let's change the LFO here. So let's go in here, mod, LFO number 1. We can change the speed. And I want it to be slow. And there's, of course, a bunch of different waveforms here, triangle, saw down, saw up. There's a lot of weird ones like guitar, for example, experiential triangle, I think that is. Step 4 triangles. So there's a bunch of different waveforms here for this LFO here. Gonna be boring, stick with triangle. And just to play some more with pitch, let's go to pitch here. Let's change to operator number 2. Let's add just a bit of pitch EG. Too much. Let's take it down a bit to 15. It's almost like a rolling effect. So yet again, bear with me here. We're gonna make it sound even more beautiful. So we'll go to levels here again. So that's nice. I changed operator 3 here to a ratio of 3 instead. Now, since we're using EG number 1, let's go to mod here. Let's take a look at it. So we have EG to pitch, and let's increase it a bit here, longer attack. So far we've applied some envelope and some LFO here to the two modulators. And this is just what makes FM fun. There's so much going on here. And I just made some small changes here to the amp envelope here. So next up, we're going to talk about the V-patch or virtual patch bay. Basically, this is where you set up your different modulation routings. So shift, mod. Here you can see we can have 12 different routings. And I've already set one up here under number 1. So using this knob here, we change the source. So for example, here we have a selection between EGs and LFOs. We can also select between different CC values, both bipolar and unipolar, as well as different MIDI messages. So let's go here. Let's use LFO number 2 here. And then we set the intensity using this knob. We can also add additional control, just like I previously mentioned. So for example, we could set the mod wheel here to impact. So basically we're using the mod wheel here to control the intensity here. And then we have the destination here. So I've selected operator number 2. You can select any operator here, for example, and filter resonance. So basically what we're modulating now is not the main filter, but we're rather modulating operator number 2 and this resonance over here under mode. So basically the filter frequency modulation resonance here. So basically you can set up a bunch of different things here in the V-patch. Basically your desires, your creativity, that's the limit here. There's a lot you can do to just make small subtle differences. For example, we could also set up modulation here. So using, say, let's see, EG number 3, we could set it to operator 2. Well, we could do course ratio. We could also set it to level. So using EG number 3 here to increase the level of this one here. So if we go here into mod and go to EG number 3, you can hear how it comes in. And now it's just a matter of going back to V-patch here and go down in intensity to something that you like. So with this modulation setup, you can hear how these two modulators here kind of fade into the sound. We could also use the V-patch here to, for example, modulate the width here of the saw. So let's go into V-patch here, number 3. Let's select destination, operator 1. Let's do width. Let's use LFO number 3 for this as well. So perhaps not so much. But we need to shape the sound some more. So we of course have a master filter here with different selectable types. Cutoff, we have resonance. You can use EG here to control it. EG number 2 is set up to control it. And then we hit it again. And here we have LFO number 2 as well that can be used to control it. Now we're going to do something else here. We're going to hit shift and hit voice here, and we're going to add some unison because I think it always sounds really nice when we do this. So I usually go for just 2, turn down the spread a bit, up with the detuning, and we of course need to add some effects. We have 3 effects engines, so we can go for, well, a unison ensemble here. We have mix, depth control, rate, voice, number of voices. And for the second effect, we can try a delay. And for the third effect, let's go for a reverb. So there's some reverbs that you might recognize here from, for example, the mini-logue and the wave state. So we can try a shimmer reverb. Now, since we're only using these 3 operators here, we can of course go in here to MISC again, user algorithm, press yes, and we could add this one here, operator number 4. So let's go to second page, operator number 4, and turn it on. Let's add it as a bass. And we could add operator number 5 as well. Let's go into mode and change number 5 to a different waveform. And let's add operator number 6 here. Let's go into, again, MISC, user algo, yes. And we're now looking for 6 to 5, which is over here, 6 to 5. So let's add a bit of modulation here. And now we can of course go through the process of, again, of setting up different modulations of this modulator, for example, and having it modulate this operator and so on. We could, for example, just use any of these, operator number 3 or 2 here. So for example, number 2 to 5. And 3 to 5 as well. Now, a technique that I have when working with FM synthesizers that I think works really well with OpSix is creating variations of a preset that you've already made, because basically we've set up a bunch of different modulations, but there's quick ways to change the sound. So we have our sound. So by holding shift here, I can change the different modes here for the operators very quickly. You can see here, it also changes colors. It's very easy to understand. And I can also change the waveforms by just moving this here. So suddenly we have something new going on here. Whether it sounds good or not, up to you. But yeah, then we can also change the algorithms, because this is a super quick way to just change the way that these different operators are interacting. So that's one variation that we could save. So because this is a very hands-on FM synthesizer, it's actually really quick to make these changes. And let me just show you here. So here we have a pad I made. And I made a variation. And another variation, which I think is really beautiful. And another one. So I think that once you have something that you think is interesting, save it, create variations of it, because you never know when you're going to stumble upon something beautiful. So that was the patch from scratch, and yeah, it ended up being more of a tutorial than a review, I guess, but just some final thoughts. If you're not into FM sounds, this might not really be it for you, but if you're intrigued by FM and you've been looking for something that is easy to use, this is very much on the money. It's definitely the most easiest, the most accessible FM synthesizer that I have ever used. I'm not exaggerating, it's just very quick. The bottom line is that Korg is just really good at designing menus for quick access, and things just feel quick and fluid. It's not very hard at all. I think I spent a couple of hours on it and it felt like it was already muscle memory. It was really quick and fast, jumping back and forth between menus, which is quite unusual given that FM synthesizers are generally more complex and menu heavy and kind of annoying sometimes to program. This was just something totally different. So let me know what you thought about today's video, and I hope to see you in a future video. Talk to you later.